Welcome back to the I Am Passionate podcast. It's your host, Jaren. I hope you all are doing well. Happy National Women's Day. I hope you all enjoy the day, to all the women out there. If it is International Women's Day, I apologize because I imagine it would be. I just saw a bunch of people on social media kind of saying, well, people I follow, mix of saying Happy National / Happy International. So I'm not sure which one to say exactly, but please let me know down in the comments below. I wouldn't be here without my parents. I wouldn't be here without my mom. I wouldn't be here without my dad. So I want to thank you both for, just being the two of you. And really, this episode is going to be about Dragon Ball Daima because it's been over for about a week now. I figured I've had enough time to, kind of gather some thoughts and, just kind of give my opinion about it. But before I do that, I just want to let you all know that regarding this podcast, I'm going to keep most likely doing the solo episodes this way just because I tried to use my camera, which it sounded great, even though that it sounded different from how this episode will sound. I just need a few other pieces of equipment because when it comes to the editing process, I could not edit that footage. I was trying to, I just could not do it. So I need a few other pieces of equipment to be able to, edit, video camera footage. But my goal for myself, I've come up with a lot of goals for myself. My goal in 2025 is to use my camera at least a little bit more because, I'm sure my parents have both been waiting on me to take advantage of it. And I've taken advantage of the mic. I use it a lot, but the camera, I need to start, getting into that because I have what I need to go out and at least be able to record some stuff. But regardless, back to, Dragon Ball Daima. Many of my listeners are my loved ones, so some of you are very familiar with Dragon Ball, and some of you are not. So I'll give a brief little summary about Dragon Ball Daima. So it takes place after the defeat of Majin Buu, aka after Dragon Ball Z. Well, I shouldn't say after Dragon Ball Z. We'll say after the defeat of Majin Buu. So Goku and some of the other characters involved in defeating, in the battle against Majin Buu were turned into children by three mysterious people from the demon realm. And so Goku, the Supreme Kai, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Bulma all travel to the demon realm with some assistance, and they have to attempt to save Dende, the Earth's guardian. And, also figure out a way to turn themselves back into adults. And so on top of, kind of all the little plot points that the show introduces, this is also Akira Toriyama's last work. Because Akira Toriyama had passed away, I believe, March 1st as of last year. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. And so the very last episode, the way it had aired, at least in America, I believe the timing of it came out a little bit late, or maybe it aired this way in Japan. I wasn't 100% sure. So essentially, it came out on February 28th, but since it came out later in the day, the episode ended as soon as March 1st hit. So, just as a way to honor Akira Toriyama. And also, just for those of you who are not familiar with how to watch Dragon Ball Z, there is an order. You can watch it in Dragon Ball when Goku was originally a kid, Dragon Ball Z. I'll explain this as this is where you meet Vegeta, and there's other plot points involved, but just keeping it simple. There's Dragon Ball Daima, which takes place after the defeat of Majin Buu. There's Dragon Ball Super, which, came out about 10 years ago now, which, dang, crazy to think that, Dragon Ball Super is turning about 10 years old this year, if not 10. Then after the Tournament of Power in Dragon Ball Super, you have the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. Then you have Dragon Ball Super Superhero. So the last two are movies. And then obviously you can look up, where to start reading the manga after the Dragon Ball Superhero movie because there's other content from the manga. And I'm going to use the term non-canon very loosely, and I'm using it with Dragon Ball GT. Yes, I'm aware that, there are some people online that are saying that, it takes place in an alternate dimension, things along those lines. I'm just saying that you do not have to watch Dragon Ball GT. If you do not watch it, you're not going to miss out on, I guess, the story, if that makes sense. Like, you can kind of watch Dragon Ball GT as just something extra to enjoy if you end up enjoying it. So, again, I'm using non-canon very loosely because some of the people in the Dragon Ball community will find this podcast and someone will attack me if I do not mention that I'm using the term very, very loosely, because me myself, I do know that Akira Toriyama had some influence in Dragon Ball GT, but I believe he did not have, as much as he had in other series. So again, using the term non-canon very, very loosely here. So do not take it to heart. So going back to Dragon Ball Daima. So if I had to scale it from, I would say 1 to 9,000, Dragon Ball reference, but I'm just going to keep it to 1 to 10. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Just from the very first episode, I was very, very interested, and I remember seeing, the teaser trailers for it online. I was very, very interested in, watching it, just because I was wondering, I'm like, hey, this is interesting, and I feel like it was a fun series. It gives the fans many great moments, and if I had to say the only reason I knock it down 2 points is just because the ending had brought more questions to, what comes after it than answering some questions. And so, but regardless, the questions that were not answered, or slash, I guess you'd say plot holes, air quotes, they did not ruin it for me. And now, I am going to say spoiler alert like a good 5-10 times here, because I'm going to mention a couple of the spoilers. So I will put a timestamp somewhere on the I Am Passionate logo picture, like in the part of the blue background. Also, again, shout out to Caitlin, because she's the one who designed it for me. I'm going to put a timestamp just because, for those of you who are interested and are going to take this as a recommendation from me, I do not want to spoil it for you regarding the 2 major things, in my opinion. All right, I'm going to count down from 5 now, because I know I'm yapping. 5, 4, 3. Did you skip ahead yet? 2, 1. Okay. So the spoilers being that we've gotten 2 transformations from this series. We got Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. He surpassed the allegations that he has the transformation. And Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Yes, Super Saiyan 4 Goku from Dragon Ball GT has been made canon. And so Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta's it looks differently from Goku's and Gotenks' Super Saiyan 3, with their hair kind of going, down their back. It's very, very long. While Vegeta's kind of just stands straight up tall. So basically just his normal hair, but like 2 times the length. While Super Saiyan 4 Goku, he has it's very similar in the look. The hands are bigger, and I believe his hair is red, while in the GT his hair is black. So that's just that. I liked it. There were a lot of talks about online where some people, they loved the design, other people's not so much. So I liked it. I really, really appreciate it. I did not expect it. And so the reason why there were more questions raised than answers, which again, another spoiler alert here, was just because of the arc that comes after it, Battle of Gods, aka when Beerus was introduced, which I'm gonna have my own reasoning for, I guess some of the plot holes, which again, I'm just a fan. This is not official reasoning by any means. I feel like if this series was made before Dragon Ball Super, some of the, I guess you'd say, plot holes that were raised in Dragon Ball Daima might not be a problem. Because in Dragon Ball Super, they had, variations of, like, they slightly changed up the Battle of Gods movie and the Resurrection of F movie. So I feel like if, this was able to come out much earlier, it would have potentially fixed some of those plot holes, because in turn, it would have affected Dragon Ball Super a little bit, at least the first 2 arcs, specifically at least the first arc. But regardless, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's something that other people, it should ruin the show, it should ruin the experience for them. And again, that is not official reasoning by any means. And so I want to give what might be a hot take, my first, we'll say, anime hot take on the channel that I can think of off the top of my head. I enjoyed Dragon Ball Daima more than I enjoyed Dragon Ball GT, which to some people that's not a hot take at all, because some people just despise Dragon Ball GT. Well, other people, they love it. I'm not a Dragon Ball GT hater. I'm not at all. I just enjoy Dragon Ball Daima more. The 2 series do have a lot of similarities to one another. Dragon Ball GT, you have Goku, Pan, and Trunks travel throughout the universe to collect the Black Star Dragon Balls to avoid Earth's destruction. And so obviously, that's in Dragon Ball GT, that's about the first them traveling is about the first about 25-ish episodes. But pretty much the whole Black Star Dragon Ball premise, it's not the entire series. It's just kind of the first major arc in Dragon Ball GT. And while Dragon Ball Daima, you have Goku and the Z Fighters travel to the Demon Realm to gather the Demon Realm's Dragon Balls to, turn back into adults. And so, when I say Z Fighters, I mean the people that I had mentioned earlier in like talking about the summary. And so my reasoning for liking Daima more than Dragon Ball GT is in Dragon Ball GT, every arc, it felt like to me that the Z Fighters got defeated way too easily. I mean, it's just talking, I'm not going to, yap about this because this can be its own separate video. Baby, I feel like infected, Goten, Gohan, Vegeta a little too easily. Goten, with how that happened, I wasn't too mad, even though that I feel like Goten's still in Dragon Ball GT. He's pretty strong. I think it's a good time skip after, even though that not all of them continued their training. Gohan, I feel like I hear differently online. Some people say that Gohan continued his training, while other people say that he did not continue his training. So, regardless, he's still a powerful person in the show. I feel like I'll pose this question. Is Dragon Ball GT's Gohan stronger than, Resurrection of F Gohan? That is the question that I will ask, because if Gohan stopped his training in GT, he can still transform into Super Saiyan. While in Dragon Ball Super, when Frieza had come back, he could barely transform into a Super Saiyan, which I believe were exactly his own words, exactly almost. So that's a question I will ask for anybody who feels like they know the answer or could give a good comparison. But yes, Baby, the first major antagonist, is very, very smart. So I understand that, he basically manipulated the entire Earth's population to the way he wanted to, but I would have liked to see Gohan, Vegeta, and Piccolo put up a little bit more of a fight, which this also could just be because the show GT is only 64 episodes. Piccolo, literally, we saw him in one moment and it was like, damn, in which I understand that, Baby in the show, and yes, his name is Baby for those of you who are wondering. Essentially, he is a parasite, and, he can control, certain people if he's strong enough to. And so I understand that Baby has his own strength and that he adds it onto the person who he is taking control of. And so I understand that it gives the people like AKA Gohan, Vegeta, Goten, and makes them crazy strong. But I just would have liked to see like Gohan, fight against the possessed Goten a little bit longer. Hi, Nala. She's been barking all day, but that's okay. I'm going to try my best to continue to speak through it. And I think that Gohan probably could have defeated the possessed Goten if it wasn't for, moral complications. Which, again, I completely understand the conflict that Gohan was in that specific moment. And so then regarding Super Android 17, the next arc, Gohan, Trunks, Vegeta, Majub, and Goten were just getting destroyed. And so the only one I felt like that should not have gotten beaten as easily as he did was Vegeta. But, they all kept throwing energy-based attacks at him. So basically, this arc, which it wasn't even very long, it just was not a very smart battle IQ. I feel like maybe fans hype this up a little bit more, saying how smart of a fighter certain characters are within the Dragon Ball universe. But not just Dragon Ball. Just talk about how smart fighters are, just in general. And so, if they were not just continuously throwing energy-based attacks at him, I don't think it would have taken a Super Saiyan 4. And even then, Super Saiyan 4 had proven to be not enough because of Goku not fighting very smartly. Then the Shadow Dragons, all of them are OP in their own way. But regarding Sin Shenron / Omega Shenron, Vegeta had reached Super Saiyan 4, but it wasn't naturally like the way Goku had did it. It was, just a tool for fusion. So, again, it sounds like I just was the most critical ever because I know I'm not a very critical person. But, again, I still like GT despite some of the flaws I just pointed out with it. And connecting it back to Dragon Ball Daima, it didn't feel like the villain just had a cakewalk. Neither it didn't feel like Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo. It didn't feel like they had a cakewalk either. It felt like it was a struggle on both sides, and just this one side is gaining an advantage. Like, it didn't seem like, people had gotten like, a random advantage just like that. Like, it felt, very natural, if that makes sense, for how each side got an advantage, because from the villain side, they had a system in place, which it made sense once, the show goes on, just how strong some of the villains get. And then, regarding the heroes, I mean, after a Dragon Ball arc, they train, they get stronger. So if you were to tell me that Goku and Vegeta, like, just had a feeling that from when Dragon Ball Daima had takes place to when they fought Boo, I just knew that both of them were going to be a bit stronger than, their last big fight. And so, yeah, I mean, regarding the final battle, a lot of people, they just don't like the ending. And so it was something that, even if the ending wasn't a problem to some fans, it still would have been a very difficult fight regardless. So again, I really, really like Dragon Ball GT. I really, really like Dragon Ball Daima. I'm just a Dragon Ball fan. It is not my favorite anime of all time, but I believe it is one of, if not the most influential anime of all time. It's in my top 3. I can tell it to you right now. I will admit my top animes are just strictly out of bias, and how animes mean to me. But my goat of anime is Full Metal Alchemist. That's my goat. But my favorite animes, Dragon Ball, like Dragon Ball as a whole. My Hero Academia, yes, it's up there for my favorites. And then I'm going to say Naruto. Those 3, just had huge influences on me as a person. Plus, I think they're really, really good. But I'm not gonna say My Hero is like a goat or like all anime. It's just, like, my goat because of what it means to me personally. But I do think people need to put respect on My Hero. But that's a different episode. We're gonna go back to Dragon Ball Z. So kind of going back a little bit, like, if I was to rank them, for me, Dragon Ball Z is my favorite. That is kind of what I had started with, because I had watched Dragon Ball Z Kai at first. And then, around that time, Nickelodeon was airing Dragon Ball GT, which I had mentioned at the beginning, very loosely, non-canon series. I had watched that. Then at the time, I figured out that, there's Dragon Ball when Goku was a kid. So I kind of went back to watch it all in order before I started college, and I started college in 2020. So sometime from 2016 to 2020 is when I had watched it all in order. And so I'd say Dragon Ball Z is my favorite, whether you're saying Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Z Kai, just in general, Dragon Ball Z is my favorite. Then I'm going to put, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super pretty much at the 2 spot. It's very interchangeable. I really, really like them both. I mean, I'm a sucker for the Super Saiyan transformation. But at the same time, Dragon Ball was very, very good. A lot of, very, very good fight scenes. I feel like it told a good story, and just was a good story as a whole. But yeah, I'm a sucker for the Super Saiyan transformations. Then after Dragon Ball Super, and Dragon Ball being in the 2 spot, I would put Daima at 3 and then GT at 4. Movie wise, my favorite Dragon Ball movie is Battle of Gods. I think even before the, I guess, most iconic scene from that movie, even before that, it just had cemented as my most favorite Dragon Ball movie. But that is okay. Let me know your favorite Dragon Ball character down below. Which mine, it's a tie between Gohan and Piccolo. But also let me know if you're Team Goku or Team Vegeta, if you're on that team, or if you prefer just another character. And then kind of just to close out, would I recommend it? I would recommend Dragon Ball Daima if you are a fan of Dragon Ball as a whole. I feel like it's a good watch if you're a Dragon Ball fan. I think you will enjoy the series very, very much. It's a fun series, giving the fans a great story, and I just appreciate, Dragon Ball as a whole, because, it brought me a lot of enjoyment over the years, whether it's been through the anime or video games. And Toyotaro, I believe that is his name, correct me if I'm wrong again in the comments, is going to continue the manga in Toriyama's vision as best as he can, I'd assume, which I'm aware that the manga there's several arcs after the Tournament of Power that have continued in the manga. So, and I'm sure Toyotaro is going to try to have Dragon Ball, which I know that he's had a lot of influence on Dragon Ball over the last couple of years. So I'm sure that Toyotaro and just Dragon Ball as a whole is going to be written as best as possible to the way Toriyama would have wanted it. But yeah, if you decide to watch it, please leave a like. If you decide to watch Dragon Ball Daima, please let me know how you feel about it. And then in regard to the podcast, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.